Marshall's buyers are hustling hard to get amazing new gifts into stores, right up to the last minute. Like a designer perfume for that friend who never RSVP'd, wish list topping toys for her kids who came too, Belgian chocolates for the neighbor, a cozy scarf for your boss, and a wool jacket for your husband that you definitely did not almost forget. Marshalls, we get the deals, you get the good stuff, even at the last minute. Phew. Find a Marshalls near you.
This episode is brought to you by eBay. Before all the algorithm-fed blah and the endless sea of dupes, shopping used to feel more fun. Find that feeling again on eBay. It's not mindless scrolling, it's a fashion pursuit. And when you score that rare Adidas collab or the Dior saddlebag you've been manifesting, it's a rush. eBay has millions of pre-loved finds from hundreds of brands backed by authenticity guarantee. eBay, things people love.
Kids with ADHD get corrected 10,000 times from the time that they're kids to when they reach adulthood. 10,000 times. Just like let that sink in. That's a lot. That's a hammer on the head over and over again of something that you're doing wrong. If you're able to notice when they're doing something unique and special that perhaps the neurotypical brain cannot do, whether that's something creative, funny, loyal, forgiving. That's another trait that we have. We get mad and then we move on pretty quickly. But if you notice those traits, the same way that you correct them when they're doing something wrong, let them know. Hey, that's not something that a normal person does particularly well. You did that really well. You got a pretty cool brain.
Hey everyone, I'm Bianca Schulze, founder of the Children's Book Review, and this is the Growing Readers podcast, where we explore the books that shape young minds and the people who create them. Today, I am absolutely thrilled to welcome Penn Holderness to the show. If you've spent any time at all on social media in the past few years, you've probably seen Penn and his wife Kim's work. They are the creative duo behind the Holderness family, whose viral videos have racked up over 3 billion views. Yes, you heard that right, billion with a B. They're New York Times bestselling authors, award-winning podcasters, game creators, and they've even won The Amazing Race. They've been featured on Good Morning America, The Today Show, Fox News Channel, and CNN. Today, we're talking about something deeply personal and important to their family. Penn and Kim have just written a children's book called All You Can Be with ADHD, illustrated by the talented Vin Vogel and published by Little Brown Young Readers. This book was born from Penn's own experience with ADHD, something he didn't fully understand about himself until adulthood. In the book, kids are invited to join an imaginative ADHD clubhouse in a tree, complete with sharks, ninjas, and a snake playing the fiddle. It's a place where the challenges of ADHD are acknowledged honestly, but where the strengths, creativity, resilience, humor, and loyalty are celebrated loudly. What I love about this book is that it doesn't shy away from the tough stuff. It talks about feeling different, about forgetting things and interrupting friends, about the loneliness that can come when not everyone gets us. But it also reframes those challenges as potential superpowers and reminds kids that millions of other people, including legends like Simone Biles, Michael Phelps, and Thomas Edison, share their ADHD brains. This is a conversation about creativity, neurodiversity, parenting, and the power of humor and imagination in helping kids understand themselves. So whether you have ADHD in your family or simply want to understand it better, this episode is for you. Before we dive into our conversation with Penn Holderness, here's the book synopsis for All You Can Be with ADHD. From the New York Times bestselling authors of ADHD is Awesome comes an empowering and joyful picture book that invites young readers to join the ADHD Club, a celebration of creativity, resilience, and the endless possibilities that come with thinking differently. Welcome to the ADHD Club. If your brain's like ours, then you may be different. You may be fantastic. You may be vociferant. If your brain's like ours, you might struggle with concentration. but only because you're finding some true inspiration. If your brain's like ours, you'll soon see you're not alone with ADHD. Written in playful rhyme and filled with humor, this story will help young readers who have been diagnosed with ADHD or who have someone they care about with ADHD feel seen, understood, and empowered to embrace their pretty cool brains. Hi, Penn. Welcome to the Growing Readers Podcast.
Hi, Bianca. It is an honor. You are so important for this space. I enjoy all of it. I love your books. I'm happy to be here.
I have so many writers that come on the show, and I love diversifying with the voices that I'm talking to. And so not only am I excited to dig into your book because of the topic of ADHD, but I love that you are so kind of influential out in the world, just having fun with your wife, Kim. And so like as social media creators, and how cool to say that you're both New York Times bestselling authors.
Wild. I mean, particularly, I think for a topic like ADHD that we've had literary agents and we've had publishers use the term niche. Like, are you sure you want to do a niche book? And we were like, yeah, like I think that there's more people who are dealing with this than you might know. So we were pleasantly surprised that both books got so well received.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, with all the things that you're doing, award-winning podcasters too, and I know that you've created some games. So I have to ask the basic question, what does a typical day even look like for you and Kim? Because, I mean, you've got so many things going on.
Yeah, the typical day is not a typical day. So if we're having a typical day, that's atypical. I think the most basic structure that we have, which gets blown into smithereens most times, is we'll get together with our team. We have a very small team of 4 people, and we will talk about what sort of new ideas we have, how we want to execute them, and then talk about some of the big picture stuff as well. But essentially every week we try to come up with 3 pieces of new content with our videos. We always put a podcast out there. And then we try to have some time every week to talk about bigger picture items like books. In some cases, we have some games, we make shirts, we're working on a live show. And so we try to have room for that on days like Thursday or Friday. But if something, if we start the meeting and something really wild is going on that we need to get a video out, we just stop everything and we start working on how to script that and shoot it. And it usually goes out within 24 hours.
Wow. That's that turnaround, that's fast. Because, it takes more than what probably the average person thinks to pull together a good quality video. I have to say, this morning, I guess my devices knew that we were talking today. So the first video that popped up on my Instagram feed was you guys doing your Tracy Chapman version of
Trash Car.
The trash car,
that's doing well because apparently everyone else is living in that same season as ours, where you've got kids who just think that it's a locker room back there.
Yeah, exactly, and the metal water bottles rolling around on the car mats. Yeah, that song wrote itself pretty. And honestly, we started writing that one less than a week ago, so that was another one where we're like, oh, this is good. Let's fast track this. Yeah, perfect. Well, let's dig into this book. So you mention in the book's author's note that you didn't know you had ADHD as a kid. And I'm going to quote you. You felt like no one in history was as weird as I was. So when did you finally get diagnosed? And what was that moment like for you?
Yeah, so I got diagnosed in between my junior and senior year in college. I'd already been on academic probation twice. College for me was a little rough. I think looking back on it, when you're in a giant amphitheater or a huge auditorium for a class and you're sitting near the back row, that's not really helping your ability to hold focus. And so I struggled academically. But what had happened that got me diagnosed was I was at a funeral for my grandmother, and our family was sitting around talking about like, what are we going to do about our summer vacations that we go on? And I was stressed out, sad, thinking about my grandmother. And I got so spaced out that I was chewing on a used fly swatter, and my aunt called me out on it in the middle of the meeting, and everyone laughed. I'm glad people laughed. Like, it was funny. Like, why am I chewing on a fly swatter? But that was a good example of thinking, oh man, I know I'm weird, but this is now bordering on clinically disgusting. And so I drove myself to a doctor. I know that's not how most kids get diagnosed. And I guess I was a young adult at that point. And it was a fairly clear diagnosis. I'll tell you that I loved having an explanation for why my brain was like that. But back then in the 90s, it wasn't a great explanation. It was more of a medical diagnosis. Oh, here's your problem. You're having trouble paying attention. You're interrupting your friends. Here's a drug. I'm going to give this to you. Hope it works. Check in with me in a year. Rather than, this is a different brain type that you have. There's some upsides to it. There's some systems that you can put in place to manage it. Back then, it was more of a medical diagnosis. In the last 30 years, doctors, therapists, coaches have gotten so good at giving people resources to actually make the most of their brain. Wonder what my life would have been like if I'd gotten that sort of support when I was diagnosed.
Yeah. Well, maybe my next question is already pretty much answered, but what made you decide that now is the right time to write a children's book about ADHD? And was there a specific moment or conversation starter that you were like, okay, now is the time?
Two things. Number one, we wrote an adult version of the book, just called ADHD is Awesome. And when we went on the signing tour, we had an unbelievable outcome of people who wanted to show up, and a lot of them were kids. And so many of them, their parents were reading the book, and their parents were trying to explain the book to them. And the kids, you could tell they wanted to learn. They showed up with this. So here's the book that we had. And there were these Post-it notes on every kid. Just they had Post-it notes of like places where they could understand the book. And this happened dozens of times. We would find kids with that. And the parents would pull us aside and say, hey, you guys do like maybe a kid's version of this so they can understand it. So that, when they first find out that they have this sort of brain, that there's a resource that they can look at that's not really super dense and difficult to understand. We think that this book is easy to understand, but maybe easy for like a 5-year-old to understand. The second big thing was my son was diagnosed, and I tried to imagine like, what's the best resource I could give him where, he could read it and understand with some humor and hope and self-awareness, like what lies ahead and that it's not all bad.
Yes, that's the part I love most about it. So it uses really creative framing device. And so ADHD, there's like an ADHD clubhouse in a tree with sharks, ninjas, and a snake playing the fiddle.
Right. So
how did you land on that kind of playful approach, that imaginative approach of the clubhouse?
I've always thought of ADHD as a club, as a group of people. I mean, anytime you had a club in middle school, especially if you're an ADHD, it's a lot of times it's guys and girls who maybe aren't like everybody else, right? Think of it like the drama club or the theater arts club. That was what I joined when I was younger. People who weren't sure why they were drawn to each other, but were able to kind of live creatively and occasionally enjoy being free of the societal norms that really come with traditional schooling and jobs that aren't really geared toward kids or people with ADHD. And so that was where the club mentality came from. The first sentence of ADHD is Awesome, our adults book, is welcome to the ADHD Club. We're glad you're here. And so it was such an easy transition, like, well, let's literally build a clubhouse now for this kid's book.
I love it. So if you're writing this imaginative kind of, you just want it to be hopeful and joyful like it is, how is creating that picture book different to when you're sitting down and working on your videos for social media and whatnot? So how did that process differ for you?
Well, it's way slower. Even though Little Brown was that's our publisher, they were very supportive of our desire to get it out there as quickly as possible. So beginning to end, I think from the time that we said go to the time it went out, I think that was 7 or 8 months, which is one of the fastest turnarounds they've ever had. But still, that's pretty slow, right? So that was probably the biggest difference. There were a lot of similarities, though. It was way more similar than writing the adult book, right? The adult book was a lot more research, thought, multiple drafts, interviews. This was like a song. This book is a song. I could hear it in my head. Nobody wants me to sing it. I think they'd rather me read it. It's a picture book. But it was basically what I do on a daily basis, which is how do you take real life and put it into a song?
Yeah. Okay, well, so I have to ask you about the humor. I love that the password to the clubhouse is a riddle. And in my Australian accent, I'm going to say it, but it's I am invisible. I rhyme with art. I start with an F. What am I? And obviously the answer is fart, or as Americans say, fart.
Yep.
So for those...
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, thanks. So why does humor feel really important to you? Because I think humor is definitely the through line in everything that you do.
We need to give people with neurodiverse brains permission to laugh occasionally at themselves, particularly when you look at the amount of shame that comes with it, the amount of like silent resolution that kids and adults all deal with when it comes to not just ADHD, but autism, anxiety, dyslexia, all of these things. Like, think that humor and self-realization and a little bit of self-deprecation and permission to laugh is like a really important starting point when you're trying to destigmatize something.
And so just because I love to dive into kind of the writing process, and I notice, so we want the hope and the joy, but like any kind of exciting picture book, there's always going to be the ups and down moments. And that's what helps us keep turning those pages. And so you include both those challenging aspects of ADHD, like feeling lonely, forgetting things, interrupting friends, but that sort of ebbs and flows besides the strengths like creativity, loyalty, and resilience. So what went into striking that balance without sugarcoating the difficulties or dwelling on the negatives?
Well, for starters, you can't hit even kids. You can't hit kids with a wave of toxic positivity. You can't tell them that everything's going to be okay. It's still ADHD. It's tough, right? A lot of times things are tough, and they know that. So if you put a book in front of them saying everything is fine, I don't think they're going to respect it. They might not even finish it. So acknowledging those things is important. But also, really, you went through that list of having trouble listening to friends and getting frustrated, sometimes even mad. We added some of the emotional components that a lot of doctors don't necessarily always talk about with ADHD. Like, there's an emotional component of ADHD that might be, in some people, stronger than all of the other challenges put together, like that flooding that happens when you're starting to feel bad about yourself. And so really, the whole purpose of that setup was allowing on this one page, when you say, does this look familiar, the examples I gave, if you answered yes, you are so very brave, right? That's the most important page in the book. That's where the kid who's reading it is able to say, yeah, that's me. And once you get past that and have the self-awareness of that, then it's time to move on to, hey, look at all this other stuff. Look at all these other amazing qualities that many of you have. You may not have all of them, but most of you have quite a few of them.
Yeah. And so talking about those amazing qualities, I think a really fun feature of this book is the Legends with ADHD section. And it's everyone from Simone Biles to Thomas Edison and even will.i.am. So, I think more people out there have ADHD than we realize. So how did you choose which public figures to highlight?
Well, we wanted to be careful to make sure it was a diverse group. I think that's really important, particularly because Black and brown children and adults are 4 or 5 times less likely to be diagnosed than people who look like me. Women are 3 times as likely to be undiagnosed as men. Boys and girls, same ratio. There's a whole other book about why that is, but for the most part, the cliff notes are women are tougher than men. They internalize their difficulties better, they get through life better, and then they turn 40 and they have to deal with sign-up genius and it breaks their brain and they realize, oh crap, I think I've got this. And by then you kind of want to say, we're not worthy that you actually made it this far. But so we wanted a diverse group, and we also wanted a diverse group as far as what they do, right? A computer designer, a scientist, so many athletes. That was like a really surprising revelation when we started doing research about this, is that the ability to really hyper-focus on something that's of personal interest works well for athletes. And that's something that people with ADHD can do.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the point about how we think maybe there's a lack of attention, but it's actually not. There's like a lot of attention there. It's just the ability to focus it. And so I can see why when you get a special interest, then suddenly all of that attention has a place to go.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Ned Hallowell, who was kind of the godfather of great writing for ADHD, he has great metaphors. And one of his metaphors is that the ADHD brain is like something with a Ferrari engine and bicycle brakes. So it is very powerful, but it doesn't know when to slow down or stop. And so sometimes there's things like sports, or, if you have a hobby that you really care about, or a game that you want to play, that can be a real bonus for you. It may not work as well when you have to clean your room.
Doug. Here we have the Limu Emu in its natural habitat, helping people customize their car insurance and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual. Fascinating. It's accompanied by his natural ally, Doug.
Limu, is that guy with the binoculars watching us?
Cut the camera. They see us.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Savings vary. Underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates. Excludes Massachusetts.
Based on the worldwide best-selling novel.
Millie's gonna be living with us. She's gonna be part of the family.
Can you?
I need this job. I can't lose it. I do not want to go back.
Keep a secret.
What do you know about this family?
I know you shouldn't be here. The Housemaid. Only in theaters Friday. Rated R.
I love that analogy, the Ferrari engine and the bicycle brakes. And one of my kiddos, the bicycle brakes are always failing. So
yeah, same. I don't know what they're doing with the new ones. They're like different types of brakes, but I have to readjust them every other week.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, let's talk about, so what's really fun about the picture book is that we get the illustrations as well. So it's Vin Vogel who did the artwork, and they're so vibrant and they're really full of energy. So I'm wondering if you remember what went through your mind the first time you saw the finished artwork.
Pretty emotional. Now, we just don't ever do anything that you can touch, right? Everything that we put together is a video that has no mass, weight, size. You can't open it up or close it. And so there was something about the tactileness of actually getting the book and opening it up. And I don't know if he has ADHD, but he definitely understands it. Like the way that he draws, and we didn't give him a ton of direction. We said, it'd be great if you just, if you put a page where a girl is really scared of a word. And that was my favorite page. Like he finds a way to, in very small but clever adjustments, to personify an emotion. And I know that's what illustrators are. I just never been part of this part of publishing or literature. And I have so much respect for illustrators now. Now, when I go back and look at books that I read when I was a kid, I pay a lot more attention to the illustrations, knowing how hard it is to toe that line and put the perfect picture out there. And I know, look, Bianca, I know that you have, and looking at your books, I think you have the same illustrator all the time, right? And I'm the same way. I can't imagine myself not working with Van, who I've never met, by the way. He lives in Brazil.
I've not met my illustrator either.
Right, yeah. But you haven't met your illustrator yet? Okay.
No. She lives in England, so
right. No one lives here. They all live somewhere else. Yeah.
Where does Vin live?
He's in Brazil.
Wow. Yeah.
And he's got family and kids, and I think some of the kids look like the, I don't know, whatever it is. He is a miracle worker in the way that he does it. It also makes me realize, in this age of AI, he's so clearly not. You know what I mean? And this is nothing against AI. I know there are people who think that it's going to save us all. But when it comes to art, I have been tricked in the past when it comes to illustrations like that. And everything that he does is so unmistakably human. And
yes, I love that too. And I just want you to know I've been tricked as well. And I'm looking at books all of the time. And, it's stressful because I believe the creation of art and anything creative, I don't want that to come from AI, and so. Yeah.
So do you agree that part of the reason you love art is that you get to experience and understand the humanity and the soul of the person who created it?
100%. That's when you see inside. And it's also that moment when you, as the receiver of that art, whatever the art form is, whether it's an Instagram reel or a picture book, you as the receiver of that art, you get to feel seen as well. Like there's somebody else out there that gets me, that gets my heart, that gets my mind. And yeah, I feel like if AI was to just take over, it would just be an echo chamber, right? Because AI can only do what's put in, so nothing new eventually would come out of that anyway.
We could start a club, and it's going to be a grumpy club. But yeah, I totally agree with everything that you're saying.
Everybody, I mean, I think we all have our own grumpy clubs already. Well, I want to say that in the back matter of the book, and you already kind of shared this, that there's some really creative systems that you've developed, like singing a song to the tune of head, shoulders, knees, and toes to remember your glasses, wallets, keys, and phone. And I actually wanted to sing it, but I didn't because you're a better singer than I am. So feel free to sing that for us. But also, like, what are the other quirky strategies that you've found that help with your ADHD and your family?
Yeah, so it's glasses, wallet, keys, and phone, over and over again. And I won't overdo it for people who don't want to hear me sing right now. There's so many things. They're all upstream, right? That's the rule. They cut off the problem before it actually presents itself. And some of them are long-term upstream solutions. I don't know if you notice, if this is people watching a video, this is my wife's name. It's kind of blurry now because it's pretty old, that I got tattooed on my finger because I had lost 3 wedding rings working out and or playing tennis because I'm left-handed and it just was always in the way. So things like that where I use that as an example because it goes away from standard societal norms, because we're not normal and we don't have to always adhere to society, but also solves a problem in a creative way so that it will never bother you again and you can move on to being a creative, fun, awesome person.
Yeah.
For me, I've got a lot of notes. I've got a lot of Post-its. They're all over the place. When I take notes, I always put a box next to a to-do item so I can check it off because of the dopamine hit you get from just checking that off. You know how people say you should sing happy birthday to you when you're washing your hands? That was a big thing they said during COVID. So I come up with a different song if I can every day to try to sing the chorus to when I'm washing my hands. And when I brush my teeth, I have to sing not a chorus, but like a full verse in a chorus. So I time things out musically in my head just to make sure I'm doing them. These are all incredibly like subjective things that I do that maybe someone else wouldn't do. But the key is you find something that interests you or that challenges you and you implement that into your daily routine. And it's going to stimulate that interest-based nervous system where like you're not going to do something if you don't care about it. And so that's the basis of all of these hacks, I guess you could call them.
Okay, so now I have a question. So we do tend to remember the things that we care about, but there are those things that are mundane or they just don't interest, but we still have to do them. Mm-hmm. So what do you do to make sure that if you've got some tedious chore, I mean, do you have to set it on your calendar and do the 30-minute reminder before, 15-minute reminder before, the things that you just really can't keep a memory of? What's your go-to for that?
Sure. If you have an iPhone and you're not making use of the reminders app or function that it has, you're doing yourself, I believe, a disservice. That is one part of technology. I don't care how AI it gets. That is a godsend for us because ADHDers do, as you said, Bianca, we have a problem where if something is not directly in front of us, it leaves our working memory and can disappear in a way that a neurotypical person could never fathom. Like you walk into the room to get something, you see something else, and you completely forgot why you've walked into the room. And so the things that I do, I set the reminder, and then when I'm doing it, I'm very intentional about doing that task and nothing else as it's going on. And there's a relationship component to this that's really important that kids can have with their parents, spouses can have with their spouses, where you say, hey, I just need this from you when I'm doing something. If you bring up something else that I need to do when I'm done with this, I'm so sorry, but it's going to wreck me. So if you can just hold off until I'm done, or even like send me an email or a text about it. I'm not going to look at my phone right now. That has been so, and at first I think Kim was like, no, I'm not going to do this. And then she saw it in action and she saw that, oh, I'm not being disrespectful. It's actually just leaving my brain when you're telling me to do this. And so she now knows. And Kim gives me incredible grace just from day one. She's fantastic about this. But now that we know that I'm going to function way better if she gives me one thing at a time, or at the very least doesn't interrupt me while I'm doing the current thing that I'm doing, there's a way higher chance of success.
Yes, for sure. I think my kids have figured that out with me too. So when they want something, whether it's, specific fruit snacks from the supermarket or whatnot, they know if they just tell me, it's not going to come home. So they've learned to email me or text me so I can add it to my physical list. But
That's so great.
There's a lot to be said of that.
Man, I love these stories. And this is the other thing that's not being talked about enough. Because normally on the parent side or on the caretaker side, the person who doesn't have ADHD, it's just a gripe fest. Understandably, it is hard, right? It is sometimes we are difficult and awful. But I want to hear more of those stories where like not only are you showing grace and being an awesome partner, but you're coming up with this creative solution to make sure that everyone can live together a little bit easier. So that's so great to hear.
Yeah.
Good for your kids.
Well, so then on this now, like, what do you hope that parents will do differently after reading this book with their kids?
Yeah, I mean, the hope is that everybody understands better what it is, right? I think that parents who are loving and caring and want to help, they know that this is an explanation, but it's not an excuse to just act like a turd the entire time, right? So I hope that they can find a way to get that message to their kids. Like, you are special. I hope that here's one thing I really hope that they do. Kids with ADHD get corrected 10,000 times from the time that they're kids to when they reach adulthood. 10,000 times. Just like let that sink in. That's a lot. That's a hammer on the head over and over again of something that you're doing wrong. If you're able to notice when they're doing something unique and special that perhaps the neurotypical brain cannot do, whether that's something creative, funny, loyal, forgiving, that's another trait that we have. We get mad and then we move on pretty quickly. But if you notice those traits, the same way that you correct them when they're doing something wrong, let them know, like, hey, that's not something that a normal person does particularly well. You did that really well. You got a pretty cool brain.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that loyalty piece too. Right. Well, there's a powerful line in the book. I think it's powerful. You're brave to admit that sometimes things are tough. It's braver than getting haircuts in the dark. It's braver than feeding cupcakes to a shark. So what made you want to include that level of bravery, like reminding kids that it is brave to sort of just admit that things are tough?
Because I've seen it, because we've had so many of these book signings, and in every single one of them, a kid who's kind of scared to raise his hand or say anything raises his hand for the first time with his parent and says, it's really tough for me sometimes to brush my teeth at night. Like, do you have any advice on that? Because I just, my brain just goes somewhere else. And you see the parents and their eyes are like filled with tears because they're aware that what it takes for them to say something like that, it takes a lot, especially if you don't know what's going on. I think these kids are starting to understand it more by being in a community where we can talk about it. But it's no matter what, when you're a kid and you've got something called ADHD, you're naturally going to probably want to deny that unless you can see some sort of upside. So it takes a ton of courage to say something about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you could go back and give your picture book to young Penn, what do you think would have changed for you?
Oh my gosh. Well, my mom would have been she'd have so much more free time. I think it would have really helped the emotional component. I am what Dr. Becky calls a deeply feeling kid, or was. I guess I still kind of am. I think once you're a deeply feeling kid, you're always a deeply feeling kid. And it was problematic. Like, I would cry in the playground in 2nd and 3rd grade, but it stayed. Like, I teared up in middle school. It took until high school for me to not get overwhelmed emotionally. And part of it was just because I didn't know why I was feeling this way. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't understand why I got so high and so low so quickly. And so I think just understanding, like, yeah, we get upset and mad sometimes, but there's hope on the other side. I might have been a little more regulated emotionally. And, it's hard to make really good friends when you're up and down like that. So I may have had, I don't keep in touch with as many people that I knew when I was much younger. And so I might have had some older friends who could have put up with me because I understood what was going on.
Yeah. I don't know. This is just an observation, and I'm not an expert in any way, but sometimes I feel as though well, all kids are just trying to make sense of the world. And so I think sometimes when, maybe a neurotypical kid sees a kid that is flooded with emotions, sometimes I think they're trying to make sense of that and they almost push the buttons intentionally, I think, to try and make sense of the world. So as much as this book is for a kid that has ADHD, like I think it's such a wonderful book for all kids so that they can also understand maybe why somebody is acting differently and maybe then they won't intentionally go and push those buttons to try and make sense of what is going on with this other kid. That's something that I feel this book is good for supporting the neurotypical kid just so that they can have more understanding.
You're so nice to say that. And we've already seen some of that happening. There's quite a few teachers who are reading it to their entire class and then turning it into a discussion topic. We actually put together a curriculum for it, or like a mini curriculum, sort of a worksheet or a work page that you can download if you're a teacher and give them an opportunity to discuss this. And from what we've heard from teachers, it's the people that they were most surprised about were the neurotypical ones.
Yeah.
Just understanding it.
I guess of everything that we've spoken to today, it's hard for us all to take in everything. Whenever I listen to a podcast or read a book, there's always one takeaway that always stands out to me. And also, I just want to shout out, I love that you mentioned Dr. Becky and her book, Good Inside. I love that philosophy. Like every kid is good inside. But with our conversation today and this particular picture book, what's one thing that you want every listener to remember about ADHD after hearing our conversation?
Let's go with it is a delay. Look, there's a ton of positive stuff that we talked about during this, but I always want people to understand that our executive functioning part of our brain is underdeveloped. And that goes on through most of childhood and adolescence, and it will catch up in some ways during adulthood. It's how, once you get to adulthood, you usually are kind of okay. It doesn't mean your ADHD goes away. It just means that part of the delay has caught up. And so I always encourage patience for kids and for people who are with these kids to know that it's going to get there. But like my ability to emotionally regulate was severely delayed. And so for that reason, I thought there was something seriously wrong with me. And all of my friends thought that I was a crybaby, right? That's not great either way. That's the term they use to describe me. And it happens more, that part of it, the emotional component, happens more in ADHD kids than people realize because it's not really in the definition and diagnosis. But as a parent, just know that it's delay. It's not the complete absence of the ability to do all these things.
Yeah, it's just the delay. I do like that. Well, Penn, I love that you and Kim have created a book that makes kids feel like they're joining a club rather than dealing with the diagnosis. And All You Can Be with ADHD truly does live up to its title because it shows kids not just how to cope with ADHD, but how to celebrate the unique ways that their brains work. So thank you to you and Kim so much for sharing your story and for creating such a joyful, honest resource for kids and families. And just a big, huge thank you for being here today.
You're so sweet. Thank you. By the way, are you like in Australia or is that just where you're from?
No, I'm in Colorado in the United States.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, look, it was a pleasure. And again, thank you for making this resource available and this conversation. And the whole kids book thing is so much fun. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be an author in this space and be able to talk about it.
Thank you so much for joining us on this quest for growing readers. What a wonderful conversation. You can find all the links you need in our show notes. We've included a direct link to order All You Can Be with ADHD, and trust me, this is one you'll want to grab for your home, classroom, or library. We've also linked to theholdernessfamily.com, where you can explore more of Penn and Kim's videos, podcasts, and resources. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Your reviews help other book-loving families find us. And if you know someone who would benefit from hearing this conversation, whether they're a parent, teacher, or someone navigating ADHD themselves, please please share this episode with them. Let's spread the word about this incredible resource. We'll be taking a short break over the holidays, but we have some really exciting guests and books lined up for 2026. So make sure you're subscribed or follow the Growing Readers podcast on your favorite listening platform so you get an alert the second we're back. Until next time, keep reading, keep growing, and remember, there's a whole clubhouse full of amazing people out there, and you're invited. Happy reading, everyone. The Growing Readers podcast is a production of the Children's Book Review. For more joyful books like All You Can Be with ADHD by Penn and Kim Holderness, I hope you'll visit us at thechildrensbookreview.com.